Hello and welcome to the first episode of Chat OMP. This is a series that we're going to roll out during the year whereby I, William Peake, speak to each of the office managing partners around the globe in the Harneys network. We have 9 office managing partners and we decided to start with Lishi Fong in Singapore. Hello, Lishi.
Hi, Will. Good to be the first.
Absolutely. Well, you had the smallest list of demands, so you were the least diva-esque. So therefore, we thought we would kick off with you. So, Lishi, thanks very much. Obviously, we spend a lot of time talking to each other in your role as office managing partner and as a partner of mine. But do you want to just give everybody a kind of sense of your background, how you ended up offshore? I think that's always an interesting story for people to hear.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually Singaporean, so I grew up here. Family lives in Singapore. I've got 2 boys. I did my A-levels in Singapore, and then I moved to London to do law school. I trained with Norton Rose Fulbright in London, worked in London, and moved back with Norton Rose Fulbright. So actually, Harneys is just a second job in my entire life, which is a bit strange in the current world where, people change jobs every 2 or 3 years. This is just my second job.
As long as you don't drop a bombshell there, Lishi, that
No,
William,
no.
while I've got you on the phone.
This is the letter. No, in terms of my move offshore, this is another interesting story, actually. I mean, I've said it many times. Paul Sefton sold me the dream. I was working very long hours at NRF. I was actually a banking lawyer. My background was leverage finance. When I got the call from a recruiter, it was actually a cold call saying, "Would you like to meet this partner from an offshore law firm?" And I went, "No, not really. Don't really have time." She said, "No, just give him 15 minutes. I promise you'll see a different perspective." I was like, "Fine. We've got to meet late," because I remember very clearly I had a client seminar that day that I was conducting. So I met Paul, I think, late evening after dinner, and he was in this nice suit, and he sold me the dream. He's like, "You're going to be doing cutting edge work offshore. There's work-life balance, great place to be. We're supportive of females," and that's it. I was sold.
That does
Jokes
sound like
aside,
Paul.
the proposition was, come and help us build the transactional practice.
Yeah.
You won't just be doing banking, it'll be corporate, it'll be funds, it'll be private wealth and trust, a fiduciary arm as well. And I mean, that was very interesting for me because it's not just the legal work, right? It's a bit of management, it's a lot of BD, it's getting to meet new people. And, 5 years in, still doing that and enjoying it.
Excellent. Yeah, when I'm doing my OMP chat with Paul, I'll ask for his version of the story as well. I'm really concerned that when Paul and I speak, we're going to spend the entire 10 minutes talking about sneakers. So we need to keep it absolutely professional. So obviously, as a Singaporean, there is nobody better to ask than you as to why Singapore is that cutting edge offshore center. And why is Singapore a place that just so many people enjoy living in and gravitate towards?
I think credit goes to our government. In Singapore, we've got no natural resources. So the only thing we have is the government and our people. I think our government has done a very good job in positioning Singapore as, the private wealth hub, arbitration hub, funds hub. We've got good business grants. We've attracted a lot of businesses to Singapore, setting up, the HQ here. And I think Singapore's well positioned in terms of traveling around Southeast Asia, covering a lot of the regional work. So I think a lot of businesses, looking out of my window, a lot of businesses set up here because legislation is good, it's safe, and it's predictable. You're not going to get an election that changed things massively in terms of the business climate. And I think businesses need stability now. And that's what our government can provide. So there's quite a lot of energy and a lot of activity here. Not to say that, Singapore is some unicorn type jurisdiction. Obviously, we've got our challenges as well. But it's nice to see, people coming here and trying to do things here. And, conferences being held in Singapore, multi-day conferences. I think that's quite a big thing that happened during COVID and after COVID. So I think the vibe now is quite good. And, with more businesses coming, hopefully there'll be more deals, there'll be more offshore element and, more work for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's Singapore like as a kind of city to live in terms of, its culture, its restaurant scene, its kind of vibrancy? Anytime I've visited, I've just absolutely loved it. That's kind of like the visitor experience. So what's it like kind of day to day living there?
We always joke about it as a Singaporean. If you're young and free, you go to Hong Kong. You've got a good nightlife, It's more exciting, or in the Singaporean term, it's
Yeah.
more happening.
Yes.
But
Yes.
when you grow up and you have a family, you've got kids, Singapore it's good because it's safe. You don't feel
Yes.
like you can't walk out at night and be alone. We've got a good education system here. Singapore is multiracial, so you don't, regardless of where you come from, you'll be able to find, your clique in Singapore. And I think that's
Yes.
what people like. We've got a Dutch community, German community, Japanese community, Korean community. It's very diverse, and with English you pretty much get around everywhere, taxi drivers, hawker centers. So it's really that. I think restaurant scene, we're amazing now. We've got a lot of good restaurants. You can live it up in Singapore, and then you can go cheap as well, and then
Yeah.
there's the in between. A lot of people like Singapore for that, the variety and the stability.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was on my kind of obligatory year out, I stopped off in Singapore for a couple of days and obviously had to go to Raffles Hotel for a Singapore sling. And I just remember
Yeah.
handing over my emergency credit card to pay for two Singapore slings, and they poured them out of a jug. And I was like, this is the most disappointing experience I've ever. I thought this was going to be, a real bit of showbiz. And just in terms of, obviously you have a hugely busy practice. You've got your family life. You're the office managing partner of. How do you juggle all of those competing interests?
People talk about work-life balance. I think for me, it's really work-life integration. Every family is
Yeah, yeah,
different, and you
interesting.
just
Yeah.
you just make it work. I mean, there's no balancing. The reality is work is a big part of my life. I enjoy
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
but then I've got a village helping with the kids. I've got a very good team in Singapore. And I
Yeah,
think, we're in a very privileged position in Singapore where it's a small office. We've got 25 people. Everyone work well as a team. We help each other.
hmm,
We BD for each other, regardless of whether or not you're a partner,
yeah,
you're an associate, you're a support staff. Everyone knows what we do. They go out, they meet friends, they talk about it. And I think that helps. I mean, I can attend a litigation meeting, the litigation guys can attend a trans meeting, and after that we
yeah.
share notes. So we work as a team in Singapore, and that really helps with the whole juggling. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah,
to be fair, the admin is just the admin. You've just got to do it. So, let's sleep,
yeah,
doing some stuff on weekends, just clear it, I guess.
yeah. It's so that's actually really. I've never thought of it that way, of the integration point, and it does take a village both to do your work and to raise your family. So it's a really interesting way of looking at it. So my final question is one that I think I've just stolen from the Financial Times, from an article that I read. But if you could have dinner with one famous person, alive or dead, who would it be?
This is quite a tough one.
These are
I
the
think
hard
right now,
questions that you're going to get asked
yeah,
on Chat OMP, Lishi.
yeah,
This is no
yeah.
easy ride.
I know, I thought about it. I think at this point in time, I would quite like to have dinner with Michelle Obama. I recently listened to a podcast when she was, being interviewed on a new book. I think she's got quite interesting perspective on a lot of things that may relate to me. I mean, not saying that life as an OMP is like the first lady, but the struggles of knowing too much and yet maintaining, that positive outlook to the outside
Yeah,
world.
yeah, that's
You know,
brilliant. Yeah,
how do you
so
keep
true.
calm when, everything is going crazy around you? I think a huge part of that is the kind of work we do, right? We get a lot of information from, the partnership, and yet you open the door after the Zoom call and you've got to, make sure you're calm, make sure you're
It,
collected, and present it to the firm as something positive. And sometimes you're just freaking out internally, right?
yeah, well,
It's
that's it.
not that easy all the time.
It's so true. I think that for me as well, the real challenge of being a managing partner is holding the tension and then walking out, as you say, and people making, oh, Leishi's in brilliant form. Things are going well. That's really, really good. Well, mine would probably be Barack Obama. So I'll see if we can line up a four ball, Leishi, and take
Yeah,
it from
that's
there.
it. We can have dinner, and I'm sure they can invite, some of your friends, and then we've got a full table of,
Yeah, yeah.
interesting guests.
Yeah, we'll be absolutely well set. Well, Lishi, thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed it actually, and I think it's giving people a really good insight as to the Singapore office, you, and the kind of global approach that Harneys is taking to these issues. So thank you very much, and we shall talk in 9 months, which is the full loop around to when you come back on the Chat OMP. The excitement.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Lishi. Talk soon.